If you are hunting trouble, lad, you found it.
Hello, and welcome to part 2 of the mini paint review. On the last time, we checked out the core sets along with the metallics range, but on this one, I'll be checking out the extra special set that came in the mail a few weeks after I recorded that last video. So, let's get on to that. It's inside of this grr. So let's get it open and take a look. As you can see, this is the rest of the paint range, which includes Earth Tone, Pale Flesh, Wolf Gray, which is more of a light gray, yeah. Scarlet Red, a much darker red. Yellow Olive, which is pretty much identical to the later Cayman Green. I don't even know why they included such a similar tone, but it's still a nice green to have for stuff like Imperial Guard and Jungle Troopers anyway. Desert Yellow, which is a very nice tone for doing desert soldiers, of course. Magic Blue, which I think I might have actually mixed this up with Electric Blue. Yeah, let me fix that. Electric Blue, which is a very nice light blue, which would be great for effects on coils of plasma guns and lightning and stuff like that. Brassy Brass, which is a very brassy brass. It's just a nice bright brass color. You know, you can tone it down with some black paint, and it's good as an all-around brass color. Terracotta, it's a very niche color. I don't really see many use cases for this particular tone outside of, you know, maybe golems and stuff like rock terrain. Khaki, a very useful classic color that's used in a lot of different regiment colors for things like Imperial Guard and a lot of generic soldiers too. Bright Bronze, which is a very bright bronze, good for stuff like steampunk or Necrons, you know, the newer ones that have a lot of bronze in them. Cayman Green, a classic army green that's just good for all around soldiering use in stuff like jungle soldiers, camo patterns, etc. Tan, which is, well, tan. It's good as a skin tone. And, you know, maybe to use in like webbing and stuff. Didn't really use it much. Smoky Ink, which is a very, very runny, darker brown. Kind of annoying to use actually with how runny it is. Glaze Medium, which you mix up with an existing paint to make it into a glaze. I thought at first you could just use it by itself to sort of glaze over, but that didn't really work. So it's, yeah, something you mix up with other ones. And then finally, a matte varnish to seal your figures so they don't get messed up when you use them a lot. However, if you're not actually going to use them to play and you're just going to like collect and display them, I don't think you really need varnish. Especially if you wanted to like go back to finish a paint job later. I don't think it's entirely necessary. So, onto the figures then. As you can see, this is the first batch of other figures I painted in this sort of eponymous retro style using these newer paints. I used a lot of Magic and Electric Blue for this one, along with the brighter red. More of a, not really Crimson Fish, just like a random color test, really. Second edition Space Marine, printed at, I think, 30 or 20% more scale.
At your command.
Rogue Trader Imperial Guard.
Yes,
A
sir.
lot of these color schemes I came up with just by looking at old reference material. This one's more of a wacky blue camo, blue and white camo. Little glint on the visor there.
Retreat!
This is a good use of the terracotta. I think it works really well with the desert yellow. I think they contrast with each other very well. And I know I'm not the best painter or anything, but you know, it's just to sort of show the paints off and you know, work my fingers a little bit after years of not exactly doing this. Probably the first one I did from this batch, which is more like a winter scheme. Based it off of the HECU soldier guys from Half-Life, I think. Sort of a really similar scheme to that. And just the sort of classic Cadian scheme. These Retro Imperial Guard are really nice models. Give them a checkout on Colts 3D for free. If anybody's interested in printing and using these for a retro army. And this one's got to be my favorite out of that batch, though. Also based off of a existing retro scheme. Really like the charred brown with the khaki and camo look. The big boss. Painted with mostly greens. Did some checkerboards too, and I'm not really good at checkerboards, but I think it looks so nice as an aesthetic on any army pretty much. This would be more of a snake bites or a blood axes boss, given the scheme. But I think these paints are really nice though. My point. Example of what you can do with a much larger figure. This is a 6-inch, just about Doom guy that I've scaled up from a 28mm miniature. And yeah, it's lost a little bit of the detail, but I think it doesn't matter because the paint pulls it together. Even if I'm not like, you know, the best at this. And, you know, the base too, obviously, you know, like the sort of Mars sand creeping up on the gray of a base with some blood splatter. We got the classic Doom guy color scheme with the visor that I've been told looks like Among Us. And lastly, an Orc Commandos team, which was originally much more vibrant than they came out, but I think I accidentally put too much dark wash, and it really messed with the colors on these. Yeah, it really mellowed out the colors compared to how they used to look before I put on that dark wash. Which I regret, but you know, stuff happens. Not exactly going back to strip these to repaint them or anything. This is more similar to how it originally looked before I put all of the wash on, because I actually took my time and was careful with the wash on this one. Even if the backpack comes out a little glossy for some reason. Not some of the leathers came out a bit glossy just using the regular black wash, which doesn't really happen with GW wash, which I guess is like my only real complaint. That the washes in this are a little bit glossy. Different shades of brown for the leathers too, different shades of green for the skin, just to give them nice variety. Classic goblin green bases that I'll probably put some fake grass on later, as was the rule back then. And these are also 3D printed scans of the classic commandos that I scaled up about, I think, 10 or 20%. So, you know, just to make it both in scale with the newer orcs and also make it easier for me to paint, because I have a very hard time getting super tight details, as you can probably tell. finally, the Commando inside of the Orc Chinook Commando Copta, which I made actually like 2 or 3 years ago before I even got a printer. It was just sitting around like unpainted. Then I went back and painted it. As you can see, it fits into the Orky aesthetic pretty well. Has enough space for about 9 passengers, a 32mm base, and of course an extra about 4 on the wings. Along with some space, you could probably put some Gretchen or something down here in this little main base for it. Definitely could have used some 3D printed bits though. I'm not really liking how the guns came out. They still look like guns though, so mission accomplished. Well, that's about it for the second paint review. Just giving an overview and used a lot of the second paints to paint the guardsmen with the big figure. I think it's an overall great set and an overall great range, and I highly recommend anybody who's looking for paints to try it out. Thank you, and until next time, I'm out.
Thanks, mate.